Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Cardinal HCM Direct Deposit Forum for Administrators. We thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us this afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Dessenberg, and I will be one of your facilitators today. Our webinar today is scheduled from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., and we have a lot of information to share with you all. Let's jump into the agenda. We will begin with an employee self-service direct deposit. We will provide the updates that have been made. We will have a demo with the ESS direct deposit and what that looks like. We will also discuss editing or removing accounts and the direct deposit confirmation email. Then we will head into direct deposit for administrators. We'll discuss the administrator's permissions. We'll have a demonstration of the administrator view of direct deposit. We will discuss pre-noting and queries for payroll administrators. Then we will have a security portion where we will discuss the importance of Cardinal email addresses and also the recent multi-factor authentication updates. We will end this with support. We'll let you know who you need to contact for different questions, and we will also have a Q&A at the end. All right, I'm going to hand this over to our first presenter for the day.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone has had a wonderful day. My name is Angela Ward, and I am one of the trainers here on the Cardinal Project. And I am truly excited to say that employee self-service for direct deposit is back. So starting on November the 25th, you will be able to go in and manage your own direct deposit information. I know for me, I'm excited about that. So let's talk a little bit about some key points we have here on this slide. For our payroll administrators, you will be able to enter and update direct deposits just like you do today. So there's no change to that. For our HR administrators, your security profile was updated with the payroll read-only role. That means that you can view employee direct deposit information to allow you to validate existing direct deposit distributions for rehires or transfers. The final bullet on this slide is about pre-noting. Pre-noting is the process of sending routing and account numbers to banks for validation. This process has changed from 3 to 5 days to provide more time for state payroll operations to be notified of invalid accounts. Kevin Ferwerda will be coming up shortly and will discuss some additional information for payroll administrators and provide more details about pre-noting. So what is my role today? Well, I have an exciting role. My role is to provide you with a demonstration of employee self-service for direct deposits. As part of my demo, I am going to do the following. First, I will set up an initial account. Then I will add a couple of additional accounts. From there, I'll make an update to one of the distributions. Then I will reorder accounts, and then I will finish up by showing you how to remove an account. If you're excited, I know I am. Let's get started. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am logging into our training environment, and I'm logging in as an ESS user that has not yet set up any direct deposit distributions in Cardinal. All right, took a moment, but we're in. So once I log in, I come to the Cardinal homepage. So I'm going to click the payroll tile. And from the payroll tile, I'll click the direct deposit item that's on the left. So a couple of things I want to make sure I call out here about direct deposits. There is a disclaimer, and I would absolutely encourage employees to read that disclaimer. One of the key things I want to call out here is that in bold, we talk about the fact that due to timing differences to either new or changed direct deposits, it could result in one paper check. I also want to scroll down, get this out of the way, if it'll let me. Can't move. Hold on just a moment. I'm going to see if I can reduce the size of this a little bit. There we go. I want to make sure that you guys can see that when you have a new account, when you have no account set up, you'll see it has you have not added any direct deposit account information. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do that. So I am going to start off by setting up my first account, and I'm going to click the Add Account button. Important note here, all employees are required to have a remaining balance account or remaining amount account. So that remaining balance account is going to be required by the system to be set up first. So the first thing I'm going to do is start off by setting up my main account. When I click the Add Account button, you can see an Add Account page displays. And first, I'm going to name my account by going into the nickname field. For purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to call it my main checking. From there, the system requires me to enter a routing number. If I don't know a routing number, I have a little icon here that I can click, and what it provides is an example of a page of an employee's check. It shows where you can get the routing and the account number information. Now, I live in 2025. A lot of people do not have checks any longer. So you can do an internet search for your bank routing number. And remember that it is 9 digits. So I'm going to enter in my bank routing number, maybe. There we go. And tab out of the field. I'm missing one number. Hold on here, right here. When I tab out of the field, what happens in Cardinal is Cardinal's going to take that routing number and it's going to validate it against any existing banks that exist in the system. So let's say we have a scenario where an employee has a valid routing number, they enter it, and they get an error message. So what should happen is that employee would then contact the agency payroll administrator. That payroll administrator would then reach out to state payroll operations and have that bank set up if it's not set up already in Cardinal. Again, that validation happens once you enter the routing number and you've pressed the tab key. So in this case, it's SunTrust, now Truist, that's in there. So now I need to add my account number. I'm going to go ahead and key in my account number. And if you notice, there's also a retype account number field. That's to ensure and to hopefully cut down on me making any errors in entering my account number. From there, once my account number has been entered and re-entered, I will come down to the pay distribution section and click the account type dropdown. In the account type dropdown, I see COVA pay card, checking, and savings. The COVA pay card has to be set up by the payroll administrator. So that's not something an employee can come into self-service and set up. However, once that COVA pay card has been set up by the payroll administrator, the employee can manage it through Cardinal ESS. For this example, I'm adding my main checking account, so I'm going to choose checking. The next field is deposit type. When I click the drop-down menu for deposit type, I see 3 options. The first one, defaulted to remaining balance. The next 2 options are amount and percent. Because I'm setting up my initial deposit, I must make it the remaining balance. If I choose anything different, such as amount or percent, the system will give me an error message and tell me that I need to enter my remaining balance account first. So we're going to leave the default value of remaining balance. And then the final field is amount or percent. Because I'm choosing remaining balance, which means that all of my money will go into this account, I do not need to enter any values here. If I were to enter a value here, the system would clear it out and not retain it. So for this example, I'm going to click the Save button. Once I click Save, I'm returned back to the direct deposit page and my remaining balance account is displayed. So here at the bottom, you see a print option that says send a paper copy of the direct deposit pay statement to my home. This is disabled, therefore the employee cannot click this indicator, okay? So just want to make sure I called that out. Now we've entered our main checking account, but I also want to enter my savings account. So I'm going to click the button here, the plus button under accounts to add my next account. Once I click that button, one of the things that you notice is I have my same add account page, and a lot of the things are exactly the same. So let's go ahead and enter in my additional account. So this first account I'm going to enter is my emergency savings. Need to have a little money there in case anything comes up in life. So I'm adding that emergency savings account. Next, I'm going to repeat what I did previously. enter in my bank routing number, tab out of that field, and validate that that's the correct bank. The next thing I'm going to do is enter in my account number. I'm going to make this a little easier here for our example, and I'm also going to retype that account number for validation. Now I'm going to click my account type dropdown, and this time I'm setting up a savings account. So I'm going to select the savings option. Because my remaining balance account has already been set up, Cardinal will not allow me to do a second remaining balance account. So this time I'm going to click the drop down, and I would choose either amount or percent. If I choose percent, the system does not allow me with the total of my accounts to exceed 100%. But I'm going to actually, in this example, choose a specific amount. And for my savings, I want to enter $200. Once I've entered that information, I simply click the Save button. And Cardinal will then show me that I have my remaining balance and my additional emergency savings account set up. Well, I want to enter one more account. And this one, I'm going to go back and click the plus button again to add that account. I am planning a trip to Greece. So I want to put some money aside for that. So that's going to be my vacation savings. So this time I'm going to enter in my nickname as vacation savings. Again, I'm going to repeat what I've done before. Enter in the bank routing number. I evidently love Truist because all of my accounts are there. I'm going to then enter in the account number. I'm going to also retype it for validation. Once again, come down to the account type. Going to this time again, select savings. I'm going to also click on the deposit type and change it again to an amount. And for this trip, I want to save $300 each pay period. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that in. Once I've entered that, I'm going to click the Save button. And now once again, Cardinal has returned me to the direct deposit page where I can see all of my accounts. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to update an account. So here's my scenario. I have my vacation savings all set up, but I found out that the Virginia Credit Union had a better interest rate, and I want to take advantage of that. So I want to update my banking information for my vacation savings. When I come to this page, I'm going to highlight, and here, as you can see, I'm on that specific row. Click the row for the information for the account that I want to update, and now you see the Edit Account page displays. I can edit any information on this page. So for this example, I'm going to start with updating my bank. So the first thing I need to do is update my routing number. Give me a moment here while I enter in that information and tab out. Now I've updated this to the Virginia Credit Union. Now I need to edit my account number because my account number obviously is different. So I'm going to come over to this little pencil that is an edit account icon. I'm going to click that icon, and now I'm going to enter in my account number from the Virginia Credit Union. Again, I'm going to repeat that for verification purposes. In this example, I'm not changing my account type. I'm not changing the deposit type, so I leave those values as they currently stand as savings and the amount of $300. Once I've verified that all that information is accurate, then I click the Save button. When I come back, I can now see that my routing number information and my account information has been updated. So now I want to do one other thing. I want to reorder my accounts because my Greece trip is coming up pretty soon. And I want to make sure that all my money first is deposited into my vacation savings, then my emergency savings, and then the remainder will go into my remaining balance account. So in order to have this reorder option display, I need to have at least 2 other additional accounts other than my remaining balance account. So now I'm going to simply click on the reorder button, and the reorder count page displays. I'm going to go into the new order field, change my vacation savings to the new order of 1, and change my emergency savings to the order of 2. What you'll notice here is that the remaining balance account, it does not have a field that allows me to reorder it. That's because that remaining balance account will always be last, and the system blocks me from being able to make any order changes with that particular account. Once I've reordered my accounts, I'm now going to click the Save button. And there we have it. My vacation savings is now number one. My emergency savings is now the second priority. And then, of course, my balance of net count, net. I'm talking about from the payroll administrator review. Sorry, guys. My remaining balance account is now my last account here. So now the last thing I want to show you is about removing accounts. But before I show you that, I do want to go over some key information on the slide. So give me one moment to go back to that. And I want to provide you with some guidance here. I'm going to give you a moment to kind of look over this slide. So some key things I want to call out about this slide. If I want to remove an account, right? If I want to get rid of an account, we have some guidance that we recommend. If I'm getting rid of an account, let's go back to my example, right? I had my vacation savings was set up at Truist, but I wanted to change that to a new account at the Virginia Credit Union. So instead of removing that account, because I'm still keeping it, I just want to change my banking information, we recommend that you edit that account information, just as you saw that I demonstrated just a moment ago. Okay, and that's going to make sure that it's going to trigger any type of pre-noting. And again, Kevin's going to talk in a moment about pre-noting, but it's going to allow me to quickly make that change on my account. Why would we say not remove that account? Well, let's talk about that. When to remove an account? When removing an account, we recommend that should only be done if you're permanently stopping any type of distributions to that specific account and you will not be replacing it immediately. So if an employee has only one account set up and then removes it, their direct deposit account will be inactivated and that employee will not be able to make any additional changes until the next day. For that reason, it's better to edit the account. I think it's just good a habit to have. Also, if you remove that account and if you forget to come back in, you forget to come back in the next day or in a few days passes by, you could potentially receive a paper check instead of getting your account, that check direct deposited into your account. So with these important guidance in mind, let's go back over to the system. And now I'm going to show you how to remove an account. In this example, I have 3 accounts. I have now taken my much awaited trip to Greece. So now that I have done that, I'm ready to close out that vacation savings. So in this case, I have 3 accounts and I absolutely want to remove that account. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that account, highlight it and click on it. And my edit account page will display. At the bottom of this page, you'll see there's a button that says remove. For this scenario, I do want to remove the account. So I'm going to click the remove button and I'm going to see a confirmation. Are you sure you want to remove the account? I'm going to click yes to confirm that. And then Cardinal brings me back to the direct deposit page and my vacation savings account has been removed. One final thing I want to cover before I close out this section. And that is the direct deposit confirmation email. Cardinal will send an email notification to the employee anytime there are direct deposit changes made to the account, whether made by the employee through employee self-service or by the payroll administrator. This email is sent to the employee's email address that's on their personal data page in Cardinal at the time that the direct deposit change was made. The intent is to help prevent or flag unauthorized charges or changes, I should say, not charges, but changes. The screenshot on this page is an example of the email confirmation that is sent to the employee. It is imperative that the email address is accurate. HR administrators should review and verify email addresses during onboarding and for employees when they have status changes to ensure that we have the most current and that we have correct information in the email address. That completes the ESS direct deposits demonstration, and the information that I'm covering at this time. Before I turn everything over to Kevin Forwerder, we're going to pause now to see if there are questions from you guys that you have in the chat that we will answer.
All right, we have a few questions. Let's start with, when entering the account number, are you able to copy and paste the account number and retype the account field?
I think so.
All right,
I wouldn't encourage it. I mean, if you get that wrong, it's going to someone else. Or it's going to the wrong place the money is. So, but I don't think there's any way systematically to prevent that.
would making the COBA pay card option the last option on account type help mitigate errors made by the employee, since it's often the least chosen option?
That's the order in the system. I don't think I can change that.
But also, employees can't set up their own, COBA pay card account. So even if they were to click on that, when they're setting up an account, I don't think it would allow them to do it. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, we have some questions around documentation and the requirements of HR to have this backup documentation. So we have state payroll operations in the room, and I'm going to look to Kathy to provide support with those types of questions.
So regarding documentation for accounts that are set up through employee self-service, that's between the employee and what they put on the screen. HR, payroll, no one is required to collect any kind of paperwork from those employees that are putting in their own employee self-service information. If they make a mistake, that's on them. It's not on the payroll administrator or the HR person. Did I answer? Let's see. So the other thing too that I wanted to say about that is, okay, yeah. So to answer that question, no, they don't need to provide any documentation to HR for what they were putting in. Oh, and I know what it was. The other one was. The other question was, what if they don't change their account number? They change the routing number, but they don't change the account number. When that goes through pre-note and it gets to the bank is going to reject it and send it back to state payroll ops and say, this is not a valid account, combination. And then we will reach out to the payroll administrator, and they will need to contact the employee and let them know that they made an error when they entered their information. And actually, we will inactivate that particular record. And then somebody will have to correct it. Either the employee will have to go back in or the payroll administrator.
So we had a couple of questions around security and when this is available. So as Angela mentioned, it's going to be available for users starting Tuesday the 25th. At that point, whatever's in the system, anybody who is a Cardinal payroll agency and any users that have access already into the system will be able to see their information directly in Cardinal under this direct deposit page. So it'll be available from day one. There won't be any changes after that point. And it is, all agencies are moving to this, all agencies who use Cardinal payroll. I'm going to pause the questions there because there are some other questions for the next sections. So hopefully we'll answer them then. And then we will go back to additional questions at the end.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Kevin Forwerder. I am not a professional trainer, as will be obvious. I am one of the HCM application leads on Cardinal. And I'm going to be covering the administrator view of direct deposit. it's important that as an administrator, you know what the self-service looks like, so that as employees reach out to you with questions, you can you may not have gone into self-service for your own direct deposit, but you likely will get questions about it from employees. So for the administrators, the roles that have access to the direct deposit page are HR administrators, and this is new, right? We have just rolled out access to HR administrators to have view-only access to the page. The reason for that is because HR administrators, you may have a rehire that comes back and they used to work at the state 10 years ago. Well, that direct deposit information from 10 years ago might still be in the system and will kick in for their first payroll. So it's a good idea to validate their direct deposit information in the system. The other role, there's payroll read-only roles that have access to this page. So when I show you the page, I'll kind of talk about how you would look at it, what the fields mean if you were view only. The only role that has update access to that is the payroll administrator role. So with that, let me go into the system and show you that page. So I'm going to go into the environment as a payroll administrator. Or an HR administrator. So the navigation to the page is under Payroll for North America, Employee Pay Data. As an HR administrator, you already have access to additional pay. You'll see this Request Direct Deposit. And we will go into Mr. Boat that she just updated. Oh, that's his last name. So here's Mr. Boat. A few things to point out on this screen. So the way it's laid out, you have your direct deposit, and when it's effective, you then have, like other PeopleSoft pages, right? You've got, in this case, after she made the update, there's still 2 accounts, so you could see both of the accounts. I click on View All, I see them all. The effective date. So as an administrator, you can key in, you can choose the effective date, but everything coming through self-service will have today's date or the date that it was updated as the effective date. The other thing you see here is a status. So when they set it up, it'll be active. If they remove all their accounts, so if they maybe only had 1 account and they remove it, you will see an inactive row here. What that means is direct deposit as a whole, all their accounts are inactive. Nothing's going to go to any of the accounts if it's inactive. A couple other things to point out. So here you're seeing the routing number, pre-note required. So everything updated or anything added through self-service will be pre-note required by default. Now, if they go in and only change the amount, if they've already pre-noted the account and routing number, it will not require pre-note again. I'll talk about that a little more when I talk about pre-notes specifically. A couple other things. If you're looking at the screen for an employee, you can see whether it was updated by a user or by the employee through self-service. So in this case, we see that both of these accounts were updated through employee self-service. We also are able to see the pre-note status here. Both of these, since they were just added, have a pre-note status of not submitted. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. All right, so that is how you will review the accounts. So pre-noting. So hopefully payroll administrators are familiar with it, but if not, let me go through it. So what is it? Pre-note is a verification process where we send the routing number and the account number in an ACH file to the bank. The bank gets this. Whenever we run a payroll, we send all the pending pre-notes in that file. The bank gets it and then validates that the existing combination of routing number and account are valid, that it's a valid account at that bank. It does not, however, look at the owner. So it tells you, yep, that's a good account. It doesn't know if that's a valid account for Joe Smith or for Rowboat in this case. It just knows it's a valid account. You know, it's possible Rowboat miskeyed his account number and it's for somebody else, but if it's valid, it will still pre-note. That happens very rarely, but. Now, when is it triggered? It's triggered whenever a person adds a new direct deposit or when they make changes to the account number or the routing number. Then it's going to have to pre-note. If it's already pre-noted and you're only changing the amount or the percent, it does not have to be pre-noted again. Now, when it goes to the bank, what happens is the bank validates it and the bank reaches out to SPO if the account is invalid. Once SPO is notified, they then contact the agency. They'll inactivate the account. So if you see an inactive account, either SPO inactivated it because it was invalid or the employer removed all their accounts. But SPO will notify the agency, and then as a payroll administrator, you'll have to work with that employee to correct the account information. So let's talk a minute about the timing, because we get a lot of questions about this. So when an employee enters or changes an account, the status of the pre-note, as you saw, is not submitted, and the date or the pre-note date is blank. The next thing that happens is the next payroll that runs picks up all those pending pre-notes and sends them in an ACH file to the bank. Now it can happen later that same day if a payroll is running that day, or it can happen tomorrow, but it's the next payroll. Now, when we look at our calendar, it's rare that there's 3 days till the next payroll, but it can be up to 3 days because we're running biweekly, semi-monthlies, off cycles, weeklies. You know, payrolls are running several a week, so it could be up to 3 days, but it could be same day. But that's when it is sent. The status is switched to submitted, and the pre-note date is noted as the date it was sent. That starts the 5-day waiting period. Now, that 5-day waiting period, basically, that's a period of time where the bank can notify SPO and they can make the updates before it's actually used. That account will be used on the first check date. That's 5 days after that it's sent. So typically, payroll is running about 3 days before the check date on average. So if payroll runs and it sees that I've got a bank account that's been submitted, but 3 days from now, that is within the 5 days, it will start to use that account in that payroll. So it doesn't wait till 5 days till the next payroll. It waits 5 days till the next check date. At that point, the account is activated and the status is switched to completed. So if you see that the status is completed, you can know that from that point forward, it's going to be used for any check dates on that date or beyond. The waiting period, we actually switched from 3 days to 5 days because we had situations where multiple payrolls were running in a day, and the 3-day, those accounts on the second payroll, those new accounts were being used already in that second payroll because the 3-day waiting period wasn't sufficient to actually get time for SPO to validate the invalid accounts. If it has not pre-noted yet, the employee receives a paper check for any of those payments that fall within that window.
Kevin, I have a question that I'd like for us to answer.
Okay.
Is this business days or calendar days?
It is calendar days. The 5 calendar days.
All right, thank you.
All right. A couple tools. I saw some questions earlier, and hopefully these will answer it. A couple tools or queries that are available to payroll administrators are going to be even more useful now that employees are updating their own. The first one is the direct deposit audit query. This query gives you a list of, you put in a from date and a to date, and all of the changes that were made to employee direct deposits in that date range will show up. So in the sample that I'm showing here, you see, in the date range that I provided, I only gave a day, but you could give a pay period, begin and end date, for example. You'll see all the direct deposit changes that were done during that time. And you see who they were done by, so you can see when the employee updated their own. The second query that's very useful is the PY EMPL no net direct deposit. So this query looks for employees who are going to receive a paper check, either for all of their pay or for part of their pay. Just on that last query, A means add, where you're adding a row, U means where you're updating. I saw that pop up in my window, so I couldn't avoid it. The things that this query, so this query is looking for people who are going to get a check. So it's looking for three things. First situation is where no direct deposit has been defined. So this might be a new hire who hasn't had a chance to put their direct deposit in. You either haven't keyed it or they haven't gone in and entered it. So you see the right-hand side, it says the reason. So it also shows you the last check date. So if they got paid and the hire date. So like this person here got hired 7/25, they got paid on 8/15. They still don't have a direct deposit. Probably need to reach out to them and see what's going on. These people got paid on 7/25 and haven't gotten paid yet, so they probably just haven't entered it yet. But this lets you monitor for people that haven't set up a direct deposit. The second situation is where no net balance is defined. That's where no remaining balance account is set up. So although it's required in self-service as the first account, there are ways they can go in later and remove it. If they do that, what will happen is that person will receive a paper check for the balance of their net pay. So they might get $100 going to their checking account, but the remaining balance that should be going to another account is now going to a paper check. People like that, you'll see the reason here, no net balance defined. The third situation it highlights is inactive direct deposits. That's where the status at the top is inactive. That can happen if, and those people will receive a paper check, but that can happen if they removed all of their accounts. It can happen if they had an invalid account, maybe an SPO went in and invalidated it or inactivated it, or for some reason the payroll administrator inactivated it. But either way, they're going to be getting a paper check. So I know you're all going to run out and run this afternoon to see if you have people in these situations. This query, we are fixing it. A new version of it will be going out today or tomorrow. So if you do happen to go run it, it may look different right now. So just a note, before we open up employee self-service, this report will look like it is here on the screenshot. But if you run it right now, it won't.
And I would just add to that this is something that SPO monitors. We review this report to find employees that don't have a net pay account set up. And if they're getting a paper check for like more than one pay period, one or two pay periods, we will reach out to you to remind you that all employees are required to have direct deposit. And the other thing I would caution you about is that sometimes employees like to set up those other accounts that are percentage as 100%. That doesn't qualify as the net pay account or the remaining balance account. And we look for those too, and we'll reach out and let you know if we find them.
But if you want to avoid a call from SPO, you can do this yourself,
Yeah.
which is what we would encourage.
Yep.
I have some questions that I'd like for us to pause and ask
Sure.
just around what has been presented. So if you'll take a minute, and you've already asked a question earlier, we'll try to get through those, hold your questions, and then we'll go to more questions at the end. So a clarification around employees who enter direct deposit information in ESS, that's still pre-noted, correct?
Yes.
And what if an HR person enters the direct deposit information?
Well-
That's still pre-noted, correct?
Well, HR can't enter it. They have the only. Okay, if a payroll admin enters it, it is pre-noted. Now, a payroll admin has the ability to override that pre-note checkbox, and they could uncheck it to bypass pre-note. We would strongly discourage that. But if you had somebody that at the last minute, you did not, they didn't want them to get a paper check, you could bypass the pre-note. I think Kathy would discourage that, but it can be done, and we know it's done in certain cases.
All right, then we have some questions about, as a reminder, employees used to have this access. It was removed, so we're rolling it back out now, but there are some concerns around mistakes being made. So I want to go back in and address some of those questions. We don't have the ability to have the employee upload any documentation, correct?
No.
All right. And then, if that went to the wrong location, well, I guess first of all, if the routing and the account somehow made it into another account, like if there was a mismatch, which certainly could happen. Usually it would be caught in pre-note.
Well, if it just so happened that routing number, that account number was a valid account number for that routing number for that bank, then pre-note is not going to catch it. And the deposit, would after, it would go to that account. And then the employee would come to you and say, where's my money? And you'd look at the screen and say, well, here's the account number.
Okay. So questions around if there's any blackout dates for direct deposit changes?
No, they're not.
All right. So if somebody enters something, they still are going through the pre-note cycle and, waiting that 5-day period.
Yes. And this is most places, and there's standard wording in the pre-note or on the direct deposit page that says you may receive a paper check. The cycle here is actually faster than most places. Most places you're looking at 1 to 2 payrolls before it takes your direct deposit. The cycle here, our pre-note window is fairly small, and there's a lot of situations where if an employee makes an update early in the period, it's going to go to the bank in one of those other payrolls that's running, and it'll be pre-noted before, and so they will never see a paper check. It's kind of unusual, but we've done that to try to help employees and minimize the number of paper checks that are produced.
All right. I want to address some procedural issues around, do we have the employee enter at day 1? Do they have access on day 1? Do we have an option? So first of all, the option of whether a payroll administrator enters it or an employee enters it is really procedural. At your agency, you can decide, and as you're onboarding, you can have that new direct deposit form that Kathy's going to let us know about in a minute, printed, and have the user fill that out, right? That's one way to circumvent that, and then obviously communicate with your employees. The question around employees, do they have access to Cardinal day 1? It not necessarily would depend on when their new hire was keyed. If there was an email address that was associated with that, there's a security program that needs to run after that to grant them access after you're done keying. That runs essentially every 2 hours during the day or overnight. And then finally, as an HR administrator, you're responsible for communicating information to your new ESS user. That's the only contact they're going to get. So it might be giving them their 11-digit employee ID, letting them know what email address you used, because if they've just been onboarded, they may not have their email address yet. So all those things have to fall into place. And for some agencies that might move quicker and some might slower. So we encourage you to understand what your landscape looks like and make decisions on how you want to handle that procedurally at your agency. There was a question about somebody who's entering a new HRIS system. Can we have employees enter their direct deposit information into our system and interface to Cardinal? And the answer is no. We do not have any interfaces that come in with direct deposit information. We had a question about rehires, and I'm going to hold on that for a minute. Oh, yes. So I think we had this is really more of a comment, but if you could confirm, pre-note only verifies the account number is active. It does not verify if the account number and employee are linked to each other.
That is currently true. We are hoping that next year we will be able to implement a more robust system of account verification that will let us know if the employee is an owner on an account or not. And there was a question I noticed too, where somebody said that they had an employee wanted to send money to their friend's account. Have them set that up through their own bank account. It doesn't need to be a direct deposit from their payroll. And no, they can't do that because they need to be an owner on the account, and they affirm that in the authorization that they provide for the direct deposit, that they are an owner. And the reason that's required is because in the event we have to pull money back, we can't pull it back from somebody that doesn't own the account. So that's why that's so important. And hopefully sometime next year, like I said, we will be implementing a more robust system of verification that will, tell us whether or not somebody is actually an owner. And the other thing I would caution you about is employees shouldn't be setting up direct deposit to make their mortgage payments or their car payments, or all of that can be handled through their own online banking systems. Direct deposit is meant to provide them with their pay and not to send it to, 10 different places. So I would discourage people from setting up too many accounts.
I'm going to answer this one last question and then move forward with some of the other slides. It's around HR admins who now have view-only access to direct deposit data for accuracy. If they find that the information doesn't match the document, who's responsible for keying that information? So HR admins cannot key that information. As an agency, we recommend that you work with your payroll administrators to decide, does it go directly to payroll ASAP? Because that's critical. Otherwise, it will go to the wrong place if there's old direct deposit information that's following them from another agency, whether they've transferred or they've hired back in 10 years later. Otherwise, maybe the employee can enter it because you already know that they have access, or they're sitting in your office and you're like, can you get in? And they check, they get in. Then they can go ahead and key the information in. But again, procedurally, you'll need to decide as an agency how you want to manage that. So let's move forward with the Social Security slides. And on this first slide, since employees last had direct deposit access, we've continued to strengthen security with 3 safeguards, and that includes email notifications when direct deposit is updated. And Angela already showed us that earlier. We have a warning message when an employee is missing a valid email address. That is for when there's no email, not if there's a wrong email. But payroll administrators will receive that if you're keying it in you'll receive that pop-up message. And it's important to know, essentially, if you do receive that message, that you should reach out to the HR administrator at your agency to let them know you've received this message. This needs to be updated. But the employee will never, even if the email address is updated, the employee will never receive that notification that their direct deposit is updated. So you might consider finding an alternate means for getting that information to the employee that, yes, in fact, we keyed your form, this was updated, so that they're aware of that missed confirmation. HR administrators up at the top, you play a core role in maintaining and securing access to Cardinal for all the employees. So we've listed the HR missing email query here that you can use to identify employees who do not have a valid email address. We encourage you to monitor this during onboarding, rehires, transfers, or when any other personal data is updated. And then the third thing I mentioned was the update of multi-factor authentication. As many of you are aware, multi-factor authentication, which uses Okta, is being SMS and calling is being removed. This is important to you all because it hits right before W-2s and open enrollment. And we are particularly concerned about our agencies who we consider non-Cove. So let me first address the Cove users. Cove users, we don't expect significant disruption. Most employees have access through the office or through VPN when working remotely, which will not require multi-factor authentication. However, there are many agencies who have shared concerns for their users who don't have smartphones. They have older devices that they can't load the app, or they may be uncomfortable loading or installing Okta Verify on their personal phones. We've relayed this feedback to Vita leadership, and we're strongly advocating for additional MFA options to be made available before this is retired. But we're one voice. So if we haven't heard from you, we would encourage your agency to submit a ticket from their CIO or CTO about the impacts that may be associated with your specific scenario. And we will escalate that, or you certainly can have that escalated on your side. Next is support slides. We have some incredible job aids and guides that provide step-by-step of what you saw here today. They're all linked, and I believe an email with this PowerPoint was sent out right before this meeting. You'll also receive the recording after this meeting, and this is just a short list of all that that we can do to support you through your various roles. These are all up on the Cardinal website. We do expect that we will continue updating a few of these items over the next couple of days before the rollout on 11/25. So you might see some slight swaps in screenshot, but nothing dramatic is changing to these job aids. But as always, we always recommend when you're using a job aid, go download the latest one because we are constantly updating them. I'm going to skip through these last two slides, but as you all know, if there is an issue, we want you to reach out to us in a ticket. Always include Cardinal in the subject line. And these are the issues that, if you have questions, are certainly Cardinal issues. On the next slide, instead, we show our state payroll operations partners who are in the room with us here today, a link for their payroll bulletins, which are rich with resources for payroll and payroll read-only admins, as well as others, and for any of the specific questions that are listed here. So I know that there are some other questions. I'm going to take a look back at those. I know we're getting close to the end. If we don't have an opportunity to answer your question today, we encourage you to submit a ticket. Is there a limit to the number of direct deposits an employee can enter? I think Kathy addressed that a little bit earlier. We've seen some employees that might be a little exuberant, and we discourage that because if a stop payment needs to happen, it makes it a little bit more complicated. So what's the number? What's the recommendation, Kathy?
Well, so we think that it's 10 is the actual number of slots. The new direct deposit form that will be put into everybody's SPO SharePoint folders in the next, not today, but in the next couple of days. I believe it has a limit of 5 on there, which I think is, adequate for people. There's a spot, if they have a pay card that they want to use for a fixed amount, they can, there's a slot for that, or so that, takes away from the 10. Also the Virginia 529 deduction, well, they're not deductions anymore, they're direct deposits. So those amounts, that takes up a slot. So, I would recommend no more than 5.
Right. Let's move on through some questions. If an employee enters an account that's not good, is the employee out of money, or is it the agency's responsibility to make them whole?
So, in the event that an employee does put in, the wrong account number, and it just so happens to be a valid combination, and their pay goes to that account, you should initiate a stop payment request as soon as you know about it. We are supposed to have them within 5 business days of the date of the payment. And we will do our best to try to pull that money back, but there are no guarantees. Because the employee put in the wrong amount, it's really on the employee in that case. And the agency is not really required to, do anything. We'll try, but again, there's no guarantee, and that's why people need to be really careful about what they're doing.
All right. If an employee in self-service can enter it, can payroll still remove the prenup? So employee enters direct deposit, can payroll remove?
Well, so as I showed, the status is not submitted. If as a payroll administrator, you went out there and you unchecked that pre-note required, it would not go through pre-note. I think we would discourage that, right? I mean, the pre-note is the safety to protect the employees or payroll administrators who accidentally miskeyed something. So I would discourage it, but you could, if you were trying to avoid them getting a paper check and you were 100% confident it was a valid account, you could, if you caught it in time, could bypass that pre-note.
Will the employee be able to direct deposit to a card?
Yes. They can use the pay card. They can also use, a card they get at Walmart, any prepaid card. We discourage the use of accounts like Chime and Cash App and those type of cards, because it's been our experience that there's a lot of fraud associated with those types of cards. So, while some of those routing numbers are already in the system, because those banks also, or those institutions also support normal checking and savings accounts, and we can't really, there's not a way for us to distinguish between them. If you happen to notice that it's for a Chime account or a Cash App account, I would discourage them from using that. And the other thing about those is that, you know, a lot of them, and some of them do actually post the earnings a little bit early. We don't participate in any of those programs where, you know, we support, you know, posting the deposits before the actual pay date. But, you know, so that would be a deterrent from somebody really wanting to use one of those, I think, because I think that's why a lot of them are used, is because they think they're going to get their money early. And I've seen some issues surrounding that with people. So I, you know, definitely discourage those. But, you know, other normal prepaid cards are fine.
Couple more questions. I have an employee who wants to set up a direct deposit for an account that's, her name is not on. Will she be able to do that, or will the pre-note check on her?
So she can do that. There's no way for us to catch it, but she should not do that. And she's violating the authorization that she's agreeing to that says she's an owner of the account. So if something were to happen and we had to pull money back and we couldn't get it back from that account, then she's liable to, you know, to reimburse the agency for that amount of money. So I would highly discourage that.
All right, where do we get the form?
We're gonna drop the new direct deposit form into the SBO SharePoint sites for each agency. It's also available, I feel like I'm yelling. It's also available on Payline. It got out there a little prematurely. And there will be a mass email going out with some information about the characteristics of the new form. So all that will happen in the next couple of days.
What happens to the check? Who mails it?
The agency, if there's a paper check, your agency has made arrangements between, you know, Datamatics, and who now prints all the checks, and the agency. There are arrangements made to, you know, to get those checks to the agency in one way or another. And then the agency receives them and, you know, distributes them to the employees, either through mail or, you know, handing them out.
All right, if the agency doesn't utilize ESS, will they be required to in the future? No. And then we have a question about,
Wait, they
Look-
can't,
sorry.
they can't not utilize ES.
Well, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Procedurally, an agency may decide at hire, we are not going to encourage people to use ESS. We're going to use forms. That's fine.
Yeah.
Those employees, if they found the link, could still use ESS. They have access. We're not blocking any agency employees from using ESS.
Right.
So I think
Yes.
that's what we're trying to say.
Right, so every user that has, that uses Cardinal for payroll, that has access, while they may not be able to update their address because you have your own system, they can come in and possibly update their benefits, if they were having a life event or it was open enrollment, and now update their direct deposit. To clarify, the 529 accounts can still be set up as a direct deposit account, and the employee would select savings from the account type when setting it up, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I think we call it a close here of all the questions. Does anybody else in the room have anything else to add? All right, I thank you all for attending today. There's our magnificent fall bird. And thanks for everybody who helped support this. Have a great day.